So to say that the fire conference is not beneficial to the passionate firefighter looking to recharge the batteries and network and engage and enhance their skill sets, you are sadly mistaken. This is a gold mine. All right, hey, what's up? What's up, Rejects? Episode 4. This is your host, Preston Lyons, coming at you. And before I get started, I want to talk to you guys about sharing the show. If you find any value in previous episodes or in anything I have to say today, please share it. I don't have any sponsors or take out any ads to promote the show. This is all word of mouth. So if you can please share the show, I would really appreciate it. Episode 4, this is a solo episode. I just wanted to really quick talk to you guys about conference season. FDIC is going on right now as we speak. And I don't know about you, but the first time I ever went to a conference, I was blown away. I mean, I would say blown away isn't even the proper term, because the first time I went to a conference was on accident. Okay, so as you all know, if you were a firefighter during the COVID era, those were some absolute brutal days. We run EMS, we're a fire-based EMS agency. We do our own transports. And lucky for me, I was on the medic unit for a lot of that COVID chaos. What that meant for us was freaking Tyvek painter suits and regulators and masks and goggles and hoods, and going out of service to aerosolize and decon all our medic units, wiping everything down. My fingernails are bleeding from washing my hands every 32 seconds. EMS call volume going up through the roof. I think you all experienced that. And, you know, after a year of it, I took inventory of where I was at in my career and why I got into the job. And I was questioning whether I wanted to stay in the profession. What we were doing was not what I signed up to do. I do enjoy running EMS calls. I love being a paramedic and knowing how to take care of people in true medical emergencies, true 911 calls. But those were fewer and far in between. And as we all know, fires are down. You know, when we get a fire, we're freaking ecstatic about it because we just don't get enough reps, at least in my area. I'm a suburban firefighter. So wish I got more reps. I don't, you know, but on the positive side, people's shit is burning up less and less. Anyways, I was looking into changing careers. I was looking at getting into emergency management of all things, because at least I can still be involved in disaster response, you know, hurricanes, tornadoes, floods, blizzards, all kinds of stuff, and still be connected to helping people, because I truly do have a calling to serve others in a time of need. Well, there was a hurricane that hit Fort Myers, Florida, near Cape Coral, south of Tampa, and I think 2022. And it was pretty devastating. And I was linked up with this group called Team Rubicon. It's a initially a veteran-run organization that responds to disasters and does really cool stuff. They are mostly volunteer. And I was looking to maybe get into that profession and get on paid staff with them, or at least get my feet wet in that arena and look for jobs. I signed up for a wave, like a group of people from my state, Colorado, to fly out to Florida to assist with whatever they needed, whether it was, you know, mucking out houses, cutting drywall and all this other stuff, or, you know, logistical planning, whatever they needed. And that's what I was signed up to do. And I actually had a week to go, which was January 2023. I put in for vacation. I was going to use my own vacation to go. And I was pretty much, I had everything packed. I had all my bags packed. I was ready to rock. Team Rubicon actually reached out to me and said, hey, the wave that you were on is canceled. They no longer need any additional manpower. They don't need any help. So you're not going. Well, I had already had the time off. I already had planned on going to Florida, and it's super cold in Colorado in January. So I thought to myself, what can I do to make the most out of this situation? I looked up fire conferences in Florida, because for some reason I had my heart set on going to Florida, and I found County Fire Tactics, Chief Ike and his group down there in Pensacola. I'm sure many of you listening to this podcast know who Chief Ike is and what they do, but I had no idea what County Fire Tactics was or who Chief Ike was at the time. But he was doing this thing called the Fire Conference on Pensacola Beach, and it was actually the first one. He had just recently stopped doing the H-Rock, the High Rise Conference, and was changing it up a bit to do something else. And of course, I didn't know that, but I asked my department for permission to go to this conference. And lo and behold, they said yes. They paid for my airfare, they paid for my lodging, they paid for my registration. And next thing you know, I'm going to Pensacola, Florida, which is ironic because that's where I got my start in firefighting. I was a volunteer firefighter out there while I was in the Navy and got my feet wet with structure firefighting and never looked back since. When I first got to the conference, I was overwhelmed by the amount of mustaches and firefighting t-shirts and stickers. And the funny thing was, I was looking around thinking that all the people here were a bunch of posers. I was like, look at these guys that are just way too into the job. It's not that serious. It was just like you hear from the majority of people in the fire service in our firehouses, because I had never been exposed to this before. I've never been to a fire conference. I never even thought what it does for the passionate firefighter. After a few days of being out there, people are pointing out to me, hey, there's Ray McCormick, there's Mike Champo, there's Corley Moore, there's Scott Thompson. I'm like, I don't know who you're talking about. But of course, while I'm there, it completely opened Pandora's box for me. And it just set me down this path of wanting to learn more and more and more and more about the fire service, knowing that the fire service isn't just what I experience inside the four walls of my firehouse. It is so much bigger. The brotherhood that I experienced just being there for a few days, I still talk to people to this day that were at that conference that I had met for the first time. I'm talking to you now on this platform because of that conference. So to say that the fire conference is not beneficial to the passionate firefighter looking to recharge the batteries and network and engage and enhance their skill sets, you are sadly mistaken. This is a gold mine. And I'm so glad that I stumbled upon it on accident, because who knows where I'd be today. I could be emergency manager in Preston Lions and you'd never have heard of me. Or worse, I could be stay-at-home dad, because I even thought about that. Hey, I'll just take care of the kid and the dogs, while my wife goes and, brings home the bacon. But nevertheless, I'm here today talking to you, and I'm so blessed to be here. The reason why I tell you all this stuff is because it takes me to the release of this article that just dropped with Firefighter Nation that I wrote. And it's the first time I'd ever been published. And once again, this is a domino effect of everything that happened in January 2023. And the article is called "When Fire Conferences Meet Reality." And the reason why I felt compelled to write this article is because after my first, maybe not my first one, but after going to my second fire conference and taking a bunch of notes and networking, becoming more and more into the job, continuing to recharge those batteries and igniting my passion, my cup was just overflowing with the desire to share what I had learned. And I know that there's several other firefighters out there that go to conferences and experience the same thing. And what do? We go back to our fire departments and we try to share what we learned, and we name drop and we say, these guys are doing it this way, I did this that way. And I think it would really benefit our organization if we looked more into this and maybe embraced it, because we just want to help. We just want to continue to raise the bar in our organization. Unfortunately, we are met with a lot of backlash. I mean, we already know there's two things firefighters don't like, and that's change and the way things are. So when we come in and we start to say things like, we're doing it wrong or we could do this better, and we tell our chain of command, people that have been in our organization for probably 20 plus years, and we're telling them they've been doing it wrong. Obviously, it's not received very well. And we get comments like, we're not the FDNY, we're a suburban fire department. Well, for us anyways. That's not going to work in our jurisdiction, and keep that conference shit to yourself. We do things here our way. This is blank department way, and it works for us. Right? So immediately we're kind of brushed to the side. Everything that we experience at the fire conference is basically for us to keep, and because no one else wants to hear about it. Well, I did that for a couple years, and I was getting more and more frustrated. And the negative side of it was I started to bash my own department, which is never good, because my department was willing to take a risk on me, give me a job, and give me the ability to serve the community, which is what I ultimately want to do. And I get to do it wearing their logo on my t-shirt and have their badge pinned on my chest. I cannot take that for granted. So instead of blaming my department for not embracing the things that I go out and pay my own money to learn and experience, I started to figure out, what can I do to gain more buy-in from the people in my own organization? And I came up with the 5 crucial steps to take upon returning from fire conferences, basically to effectuate change and encourage buy-in from your peers, from your line firefighters, and ultimately the chain of command. And as you can imagine, number one, it starts with yourself. You need to check your own ego. Because just because you go to fire conferences and you've done a hot training run by, Basil or Eric Wheaton or the Brothers in Battle cadre, it does make you better, but it doesn't make you better than anyone else. And I want you to think about that when you start going out and hitting conferences this year. When you get back to your department, you are no better than anybody else. And if honestly, you truly have something of value, you need to embrace a little bit of humility and start working with those fellow firefighters to teach what you learn. Because if you truly have something to offer, you need to be teaching it, you need to be mentoring people, and that's how you truly invoke change, by just checking your own ego. That's step number one. And you also need to realize that just because firefighters don't go to conferences doesn't make them bad firefighters. For whatever reason, whether they just don't know about them or they have family that they need to take care of on their off time and they can't go to fire conferences, that is not something to knock your peers on. So step number one is check your own ego. Okay. Number two, if you're going to be listened to by anybody in your own department, you need to know your own SOPs and rules and regs. You can't come in here saying that we're doing this wrong and we need to change this and change that if you don't even know what the standard is in your own organization. Why are the SOPs written the way they are? Why are these steps in the rules and regs written the way they are? If you don't know these and you come in and you start shouting out things about how FDNY or Houston Fire are doing things, but you can't explain why your department does certain things, then you need to slow your roll, embrace that humility one more time, and get your ass in the books. Start studying your own department's material. And on top of that, when you start challenging the system and going against and knocking those SOPs and rules and regs, understand that the people that wrote them in your organization probably have 20 plus years on the job. And once again, if we're saying this is crap, this SOP is wrong, and we're doing it wrong, you're slapping that person in the face, or the people that came together to write that SOP that probably did a ton of research and spent a lot of time producing that SOP. So familiarize yourself with the department SOPs, rules and regs, and figure out why they are in place. And then you can start to implement change where they can be improved upon with research, with building relationships, and with knowing the job. That's step number 2. Step number 3, understand your jurisdiction and your organization's limitations. Your jurisdiction, what I mean is primarily your building construction. Do you have nothing but residential? What era residential do you have? Do you have high rise? Do you have special areas like airports, oil and gas, swift water, wildland urban interface? You need to understand your jurisdiction once again, because if you know this stuff, people will probably want to listen to you more because you're educated, you know your shit. And then second part of this step is the organizational limitations, right? You may not have a truck culture yet. You may not have a strong search culture based on staffing. You may not have a tech rescue team or a wildland team or a swiftwater team or a hazmat team or an airport response, right? So if once again, if you start coming in and saying, I learned truck tactics at this conference and we need to start implementing them, yet your truck, your Quint, doesn't even operate as a true truck, and you're coming in and saying we need to incorporate these tactics, understand that your organization currently has limitations, and it takes a long time to change a culture. And unfortunately, especially for millennials like myself and the Gen Zs coming in, things happen really, really fast, especially with the internet and the technology that we have. We don't have patience. We want things to change right now, and we want to be the ones who invoke that change, right? But if you jump the gun on this and you start to say, hey, we're going to do truck stuff, and I'm going to go search with a water can ahead of the hose line, but that's not how you guys normally operate. You're being reckless. You're not being accountable to your organization or the incident commander in a real life IDLH situation. Do not jump the gun on this. If you really, really want to influence, change, chip away one little bit at a time, develop relationships, go enhance your skill set, understand truck culture completely, and start to just educate people on why you think it's beneficial and why the organization would benefit, and primarily how the citizens would benefit from this type of culture. But don't come in guns blazing saying that we need to do this now and we need to spend the entire department's budget on investing in tillers and towers and trucks and all the tools that need to go on it. Because once again, they're going to tell you to shut up and go sit in the corner because they don't want to hear this shit. And every time you come back from a conference, you start doing this, they're going to roll their eyes at you and they're going to ignore you. And then also, they're not going to want to invest in you any further because you're constantly challenging the organization's standard and decision making. Whether that you believe that standard is below expectations for yourself, you got to go through the proper channels to incorporate those changes. All right. And then step number 4, I learned this the hard way, is to train on the skills that you learned with your crew. Because if you're the only one that goes out to a conference and you learn these cool search techniques and search tactics, but you don't train it with your crew, then all of a sudden you're not on the same page as your crew. And now you start to have confusion and maybe some disorientation inside of a blacked out, shitty situation on the fire ground because you guys weren't training on it. So when you do learn something from a hands-on training or from a presentation, don't keep it to yourself. You need to get buy-in from your crew on why it's beneficial, learn how to present the information properly, do your research, and get them to understand why you think it's a benefit, and then go out and train it so that you can do it in a real life scenario. Because if you're on a different page than everybody else, once again, you're being reckless. And I know you don't want to hear this shit about slow your roll, build relationships, take the time. What is the saying? Turning an aircraft carrier, right? It takes a while to turn an aircraft carrier. And that's absolutely true. And like I said, we're impatient and we want change now. But if you want to do it right and you truly want to better your organization, you have to follow these steps. Lastly, number 5, share your passion and your insights. If you return from a conference and you're inspired and you want to start embracing aggressive firefighting philosophy and talk about upholding the oath of service, well, you got to tactfully share that mindset with your colleagues. If you have a department of 100 people and you convince one guy or girl to come with you to a conference next time, because that's where I found the spark. That's what changed my career, was going to a fire conference. Well, try to get someone to come with you next time. And now instead of 1 out of 99, now it's 2 out of 98. And then you do that again and again and again, because once again, don't keep this stuff to yourself. If you come back to your department and they brush you aside, take inventory and reflect on why that happened the way it did. Take a couple steps back. As Rob Fisher says, 10 pounds of pressure 100% of the time, right? If you fire hose everybody to the face, you're not going to get buy-in. Take the proper steps. And just to review, the proper steps are: 1, check your ego. 2, familiarize yourself with your department's SOPs and rules and regs. 3, understand your jurisdiction and organizational limitations. 4, train before implementation with your crew. And 5, share your passion and insights and invite someone to a conference in the future. Small baby steps, little bit of pressure, relationship building, leading by example. If you walk around and you carry yourself as the person that people want to follow, and you can, instead of bringing up a conference every time you go over a skill or talk about search or truck culture, and instead you say, I've done extensive research on this myself, I've practiced these things, and I've established myself as someone that is truly in love with this job, people will see it. You don't need to rub it in their face. You have to just lead by example, teach and mentor people that are willing to take in that information and bring them out to fire conferences, and it'll just happen organically. I promise. Moreover, and if you take the 5-step approach, instead of just being the guy that goes to fire conferences and then comes back and like shouts at the rooftops why our organization's doing things so badly, instead, you've assumed more of a leadership and mentorship role. You've enhanced your skill set and you've trained it with your crew. You know your jurisdiction's buildings and community, including SOPs and rules and regs of your own organization. I mean, who are you going to listen to more? The guy that does all the talking, or the guy that's taking things into action and fixing problems by executing, instead of going straight to chief and saying, hey, we're doing it wrong, we need to change? That's all I got for you today. I hope this stuff helps. Please let me know if you go out to a conference and you come back and you start to implement these strategies one little bit at a time and you start to get buy-in from people in your organization. Please reach out to me. I really, really want to hear your story. Maybe we'll get you on a podcast episode to tell your story and how you're making an impact in the fire service. Just reach out to me at either on Instagram, The Relentless Rejects, or my email, relentlessrejectspodcast@gmail.com. And once again, if you found any value in this, please share it. I'm relying on word of mouth here to just get this information out to the masses, because that's the ultimate goal, is to just better the fire service one little bit at a time. And the goal of overall of the Relentless Rejects is to never stop being a passionate student of the game, to reject mediocrity, and above all else, honor over everything. All right. I'll talk to you guys next time. Stay tuned for episode 5. We got Logan Broberg coming on. After that, we got Josh Everetts. We're going to be live at COBC in Pensacola doing an episode. And then we got John Velez from Tailboard Misfits coming on after that. So awesome lineup of guests coming through. If you got any recommendations for guests, go to the guest recommendations pin photo on the Relentless Rejects Instagram page. I'm looking to hear people's stories about how they evolved their why and how they're changing the fire service. So once again, thank you for listening, and I'll talk to you guys next time.